Travis Scott, Utopia album review. Let's chat about it. Hey friends, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning here tonight to chat about this latest album from Travis Scott, one of the biggest and most anticipated albums of the year. He is a Houston-based MC and one of the biggest names in modern hip-hop and rap. He's been looked at as a very creative and progressive figure in the genres, and since his early days, I've enjoyed the majority of what Travis has done. I mean, sure, yeah, like even the early tapes like Al Faro and Days Before Rodeo, while they were a little rough around the edges, I did find plenty to really enjoy on these tapes. You know, I like I said, they're not as, polished or as, well thought out as some of his later work, but even there, the seeds were being planted for something kind of special, which he did very much so with his debut full-length album, Rodeo. Listen, this album's not going to be for everybody, but for me, this did more for me for the modern trap sound than, God, I really can't think of many other records that did as much as Rodeo did for me upon the time of release. I mean, it's got some of my favorite rap singles and deep cuts of the last 10 or 15 years or so, whether it be 3500 or Nightcrawler or Pray for Love or Antidote. This thing was absolutely packed. I also really enjoyed the very tortured underbelly of this album. It's a very dark record. Now, I was very shocked to see when only about a year later Travis was releasing his next project, Birds in the Trap Sing McKnight. And, I'm going to be real with y'all. It's not an album that I personally enjoy too much. I feel like this thing was really rushed at the end of the day. I feel like Travis just kind of threw a bunch of ideas together to see what sticks. I mean, I like tracks like The Ends and, Single-Wise, Goosebumps, and Pick Up the Phone are great. But as a project, I wasn't really vibing on it. And I just kind of had a really bad taste in my mouth for quite some time with Travis's music, even though I did like what he was doing for quite some time. Now, fast forward a few years to the Astro World album. That bad taste was still kind of stuck in my mouth from his last album. I really wasn't into any of his other side projects either. Was never a big Huncho Jack guy. It sucked, but around the time of Astro World, I thought the singles were promising, and as far as an album goes, for modern pop rap, or at least, the poppier side of modern rap, this thing has so much going for it. I mean, people give Sicko Mode a lot of flack, but I still think it's a great single. A lot of the beat switch-ups on this album are done really classy, the production was great, and Travis really did get back on track with just being this figure in modern rap that liked to push things forward and try new ideas. I think Astro World's actually, one of the more decent, poppier rap albums of the last few years or so. Still really psychedelic and weird at points. Now, the build-up to this album here, Utopia, it's been a wild ride. It's been a little all over the place. I was worried that it wasn't even going to come out when it did. Even though Travis basically confirmed it, I almost thought they were going to get the Life of Pablo situation with this album. But nonetheless, here we are. This album's review's like a day late, but I wanted to give it the time it deserved because it's 19 tracks, an hour and 14 minutes long. And listen, I will say this. This album might not be for everybody. This may be a little bit too bloated or a little bit too out there for y'all. But for modern rap, this is my home. This is what I look for. This album starts off with Hyaena, and we get this like really weird kind of shouted, barked intro yelp from Travis, which I heard from a distance, and I didn't know where it was going, and I kind of got a little worried. But the second this beat drops, like This is a dark, shape-shifting banger of a track. It's hard to even classify. I should just say it right now. This is by far, as an album, Travis's weirdest and most experimental and genuinely most out there release. He's almost always trying something different on this album, no matter what the track, but it also leads to him just sounding refreshed, like he's in his zone. His verse here is explosive. I really do love the formless beat that just keeps kind of shifting more as you listen to it. The samples are weird and really great too, like the maggot brain sample that we get here. Hell yes, this is a great intro. We also have Thank God featuring KC, and right now I'm just gonna throw it out there before I disregard this. This is a very dark album. And I mean, Rodeo years ago, I don't think people really took in just how tortured that album got at times. This is really dark at times. This is a more subdued banger that kind of creeps along, but Travis sounds very comfortable on it, just right at home. The production is big and meaty. And to me, there is a sense of regality and just this epic nature to so many of the instrumentals on this album. This track is no different. He took his time, he gave us something truly special, and that's what this album is. And I have to commend his verse here once again. He sounds laser focused. Then we have Modern Jam featuring Tizo Touchdown, and there's definitely some tracks on this album that definitely kind of float into the Kanye West Yeezus worship area. But you know what? I can live with that. I mean, I don't think it's a bad beat. I think the industrial-sized beat that we get here and Travis's braggadocious bars, it's fantastic. I mean, it's not as explosive or intense as I would have liked, but this track's got some heat to it. And Tizo Touchdown, who I've been very hot and cold on. I usually either really love his stuff or really dislike everything he does. But this track here, he takes it to the next level with his very ethereal performance. Then we have My Eyes featuring Sampha and Bon Iver. This is probably the most subdued track that you're going to get here. This is very light on the ears. It's very sweet. It's got a real serious nocturnal sort of Twilight beat to it, and Justin's vocals floating through the background give it a very dreamy feel to it. And lyrically, I don't think that it's Travis's best performance on this album, but I do think he makes up with it, with just the vibe that comes off and his performance. And Sampha's feature, it's as good and amazingly sung as you would think that it is from the guy right now. Very excited to hear his new album later in the year. But for right now, on a track like this, it's all about progression. There's a lot of progression and shifting on this album, and this track is no different. This track, picks up, shifts its beat into a much more upbeat, electronically tinged banger, and it's really classy. It almost reminds me of something from James Blake's catalog, something from his Overgrown album, which does not really shock me too much. James and Travis are very close. And God's Country, for me, is just one of my personal favorite tracks here. This track takes a sharp left turn. It is a dreary sort of rainy day jazzy banger that sounds almost like something off of the new Billy Woods album. It's the shortest track here, but it packs a punch. Travis's performance is just so emotionally exhausted. It's fantastic. With Sirens, I just had to stop for a second because these beats, man, just coming from influences all over the world, and they all just seem so well done. And once again, it's constantly shifting. It's constantly changing. A lot of these tracks have beat switch-ups. It's, once again, also very Yeezus. That might do something for you, and it might not. But it's Travis's performance on this track that really just takes it home for me, just how manic and weird it is. And the final synth-heavy final minute here that we get is just so cool. And Meltdown, featuring Drake. Good on you. Good on you, Drake, because I've just been so cold on you for so long. And it's been so long since I've even enjoyed a single that he put out. But then you hear his verse here. The guy sounds like a fucking killer. The guy sounds like he's on the, if you're reading this, it's too late form Drake. I mean, good on Travis for getting this out of Drake. That icy, cold beat just does a lot for the both of these guys, which once again shifts into a completely different beat, and you know what? It's done really classy. I mean, the guy sounds like a damn enigma on this very psychedelic trap beat. It's such a great track. This album, a lot of it, or at least, is a really immersive experience. I mean, this is a very long album, and we're talking about a year where we've got Pink Tape and the new Post Malone album, and these are very beefy albums. Then you get this, and God, this album, you could just, I'd recommend just sitting through the whole thing. And the final, more intense minute here is done really, really well. I mean, I could have used one less Tom Brady reference because there's a lot on this album, but you know what? I'll let it slide. And Delresto echoes featuring Beyonce and once again Justin Vernon of Bon Iver fame. This track is nothing short of a happening. This is a groovy left field banger with enough twists and turns to keep you interested. This to me sounds like, I don't know, like the dark alternate reality of Beyonce's Renaissance. And I don't know why I love it as much as I do, but Travis's very laid back, very lackadaisical verse here brings everything together. It's a hell of a track. Beyonce sounds great. Justin Vernon's vocals bring everything together. It is a happening. You may disagree with me, but I really don't have a lot of bad things to say about this album. I mean, for one, Fiend featuring Playboi Carti and Sheck West. I think this is by far the worst track here. And it's not just one person's fault on this track. As a matter of fact, I feel like almost nothing about this track works. This beat is easily the ugliest thing that we get here. The repetitive hook, that can just go away. That can just go fuck itself. I don't want anything to do with it. And we have officially unlocked Playboi Carti's deeper registry, and I kind of want nothing to do with it. I mean, Sheck West actually brings his A game. He's probably the best thing about this track, but it's not enough. And I know is not one of my favorite ones here. I mean, the beat here, in a sea of beats that are just so masterfully executed and just so progressive and so different sounding on so many levels. You get this with, I don't know, this sounds like a beat that Hobson would have rejected 10 years ago. It's very bland, and sadly Travis sounds bored. In Lost Forever, featuring James Blake and Westside Gunn, I had a lot of hope for this track because I love everybody involved here, but to me at least, this track is a little phoned in. The soul sample's really fine. It's actually pretty good, but as far as the beat goes, there's so many more interesting moments here. And Westside Gunn, who I do enjoy the music of quite a bit, he just kind of blends in here and really doesn't do much spectacular. Outside of that, though, this album is nothing short of a trip in the best way, and I think it's easily going to be one of the year's best rap and hip-hop projects. Topia Twins featuring Rob49 and 21 Savage. Wow, this is one of the most wild-eyed and explosive and intense tracks here, and I'm so happy it is. This beat goes so hard, and all around we are getting performances from these three that are just top form. Circus Maximus is one of my favorite tracks here. This one features Sway Lee and The Weeknd. Between the pounding drums, the intensity of this track, and Sway Lee's sung hook, which is incredibly charming, there's a lot going for this track. You can make some more Yeezus comparisons if that's your thing. If you'd like to do that, that's totally fine. You would be so very accurate. But between the energy of this track and The Weeknd's performance, which is awesome, this track is so good. We get a really great synth solo too. I really think this is probably my favorite track of the album. I wish it was a single. And I've heard some Parasail flack. This one features Young Lean. And you know what? I don't see it. I actually really love this track. It's dark and gritty and bluesy. It's far from a banger, but it's just so gloomy. And this is my kind of rainy day rap that I love. But between Travis's warped vocals and Young Lean's vocals, who I've never really, truly loved, but he really works here, there's definitely a spot for this track on the album. It's this great sort of sad boy track that I didn't expect to hear, but I'm glad we did. We also have Skitzo featuring Young Thud. The beat here is so icy. It is so freaking cold, and Travis just sounds so smooth on it. Now, this is the longest track here, by quite a big margin, too, but Travis and Young Thug really do a great job of keeping this track fresh and keeping things interesting. And if you've been watching my channels for years, I've never been a Thugger guy. I haven't. But his performance here is great. The beats, the production just constantly shift throughout this thing. It feels like this weird, twisted journey. I think a lot of my thoughts on this album can be just described as it's wildly creative, but without losing any of its edge. I'm also really, truly shocked by just how good Looove featuring Kid Cudi comes off. This weirdo, wonky, skeletal beat. I mean, in an album of really fascinating production, this track stands out and it's something different. And Travis's very freakish, enigmatic performance on this track is a breath of fresh air. I didn't even need one, but it is. And I really think that Cudi brought his A game. I think that Cudi is actually, his collaboration on this track is one of the best features on this entire album. I mean, K-pop I can kind of take or leave. If I had to just have like one very middle of the road track here, it would be this one. It's not great, it's not terrible. Travis's performance is, it's fine at best. I will say this though, while this track is kind of average in my opinion, I actually really love Bad Bunny singing on this track. It's probably one of the best things about it, because as far as the Weeknd's contributions go here, he's barely felt. But Travis does a fantastic job of just rounding out this album. We have Telekinesis featuring Future and SZA, which is probably the most psychedelic thing here. And that's saying something. It is completely far out, and I love it for that. I mean, I really think that Travis's singing on this track is actually some of his better singing that he's ever done. And Future and freaking SZA, man. The both of them just bring this track together. Especially SZA, because her vocals on this track are ridiculous. Until further notice, featuring 21 Savage and James Blake just wraps this album up pretty wonderfully. This slick Metro Boomin beat is just what the doctor ordered. Compared to James Blake's other contributions to this album, I think this is easily his best. I think his vocals here really do a great job of just making this a very atmospheric, weird track. And Savage on this icy cold beat sounds right at home. I'm exhausted in the best way. Like, I feel like I've just took a wild ass trip. But I'm glad to be home, but I kind of can't wait to go again. This album might not be for everybody, and you know, as far as modern rap goes, you know, there's a lot of weird shit on this album that, you know, might not be for you. But for me, somebody who likes my modern rap dark and gritty, and I like people who take risks and really try and push this genre into the future, that is what I got here, with a slew of some of the most interesting creative beats and production that I've heard all year. Travis put together a stellar track list. He put together an awesome feature list where everybody sort of brought their A game outside of a very few people that I just did not want to hear here, like Playboy Cardi. I'm sorry, I was not into it. But still, while you may disagree, this is probably going to be one of my favorite albums of the year. And Travis's hot streak, I don't think it's just continuing. I think it's only heating up more, and I can't wait to see what he does next, and I can't wait to listen to this album again. I'm feeling a late night on this album, but let me know what you all think down below. If you liked the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, friends.